Justin Trudeau will be making an announcement in just a few minutes at about 10:45 a.m.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister.
Justin Trudeau resigned after 9 years of inflicting so much misery on Canadians. He couldn't face the Canadian people themselves. He quit and he ran and hid and he shut down Parliament to avoid a non-confidence vote. And Justin Trudeau's decision shows that he doesn't give a damn about Canadians' well-being. This was a selfish move to put his party ahead of the country. This is the worst possible time to have a government in chaos. By announcing his intention to quit and shutting down Parliament, he has deprived Canadians of an early vote in January and pushed that non-confidence vote back well into March. Canadians are going to have to go through months of uncertainty and chaos while the Liberal Party sorts itself out after Justin Trudeau clung to power for so long. And apologies to Monty Python. And now for something completely exactly the same. Well, it's because no matter who leads the Liberal Party, it's all going to be more of the same. The reason why we can say this with such certainty is because every single Liberal contender for the leadership loves what Justin Trudeau has done to Canada. They love his carbon tax. They supported him hiking it. They love his soft on crime policies. They support the massive deficits that drove up inflation. All of them were either there applauding and voting in favor of it, or were key architects behind the scenes to help Justin Trudeau implement his terrible policy. So let's just take a couple of minutes, run through the early frontrunners for the Liberal leadership, and explain how they would be exactly the same as Justin Trudeau.
Right now, in terms of we have both far too many fossil fuels in the world, half of gas, 3/4 of coal, etc., maybe up as much as half of oil reserves, proven reserves, need to stay in the ground if we're going to get to where we are.
Let's start off with Mark Carney, or Carbon Tax Carney as he's known in political circles. Now, his current role is the chair of Justin Trudeau's Economic Council. This guy has been advising Trudeau and directing the economic affairs of the country for half a decade. As far back as 2020, Liberal insiders were bragging about how Mark Carney was a trusted ally of Justin Trudeau. They relied on him for advice, and he provided a whole bunch of strategic direction to the Liberal government.
Justin Trudeau trusts Mark Carney, and you know what, around town, Jen, Mark Carney is a name I've been hearing for quite a while. Been talking about him being the next finance minister, even the next Liberal leader.
You know, you might wonder, where did Justin Trudeau get all these terrible ideas? For example, to put a cap on Canadian energy production, meaning we can't sell our clean and ethical oil and gas to our trusted allies around the world. Well, it comes from Mark Carney. Mark Carney attends these fancy cocktail circuits at the WF in Davos, and he comes back to Canada and he preaches how we have to leave our natural resources in the ground while he chairs an investment company that actually invests in energy projects around the world.
The world has to do. We can't get there unless we do not just have a cap on emissions, but those emissions are brought effectively to zero.
Do you support the Prime Minister's decision to veto the Northern Gateway pipeline, Mr. Carney?
I understand the veto of the Northern Gateway pipeline.
Do you support it?
Given both environmental and commercial reasons.
Do you support it?
I think it is sensible. I wasn't involved in the decision, but I think it was the right decision.
And yet your company has invested billions of dollars in oil companies in both Brazil and the UAE to buy pipelines. You bought billions of dollars of pipelines as a company in the last 5 years. Do you support those investments?
Mr. Poilievre, there is a global energy system, and one of the issues...
So clearly, Justin Trudeau's big deficits and inflationary spending, his economic policies that have devalued our currency, are because of Mark Carney's strategic advice. Mark Carney loves the carbon tax so much he even fought against exemptions for home heating. He actually thinks the carbon tax should apply to more things than what Trudeau has slapped it on. He and Justin Trudeau are essentially the same person. They're both wealthy elites who don't have to worry about the everyday challenges that hardworking Canadians do. They both believe that out-of-touch elites should be running the country and that we can't leave it to people to make their own decisions. Next up in the Liberal draft pool is Chrystia Freeland. Now, Chrystia Freeland was Justin Trudeau's most trusted advisor. In fact, here's what Justin Trudeau had to say himself, telling Canadians how closely they worked together as they were inflicting so much pain and misery on Canadians.
Chrystia has been by my side for close to 10 years now. She has been an incredible political partner through just about everything we have done as a government and as a party over the past decade.
So there you have it. Trudeau himself sharing the blame with Chrystia Freeland. She was there every step along the way, either as his deputy prime minister or finance minister. She hiked the carbon tax. She ran through an already insane $40 billion deficit guardrail and brought in a $60 billion deficit. And she only refused to present that mini budget herself when she found out that she was going to be demoted right afterwards. It had nothing to do with principle. It had nothing to do with a disagreement of policy. It was all ego. She has caused so much economic damage. She's gonna try and run and barge pole Justin Trudeau as far away from her as she possibly can, but never forget, she was his deputy prime minister. She chaired cabinet meetings for him, and she authored the budgets that have done so much damage by hiking prices, hiking taxes, devaluing Canada's currency, and taking the purchasing power away of your hard-earned wages. That is Chrystia Freeland's legacy. She would be just more of the same of Justin Trudeau as well. Now, what about someone from outside caucus, you might be thinking to yourself? What if the Liberals choose someone who's not so tainted by Justin Trudeau's terrible record? And one name that's been floated around is Christy Clark, the former Premier of British Columbia. If there's one person who might love carbon taxes more than carbon tax Mark Carney, it would be the queen of carbon taxes herself, Christy Clark. Christy Clark implemented a carbon tax in British Columbia and even criticized Justin Trudeau because she said that his carbon tax wasn't high enough.
BC Premier Christy Clark is not only singing the praises of her carbon tax, but is saying that she may increase it because it is so effective.
For us, if there was a next step, and we're not there yet, that's where we would go.
Increase the carbon tax.
Well, it's worked. It's worked. That's the thing about it.
Now, Canada's Parliament has been seized with Liberal corruption for the last 4 months, and Christy Clark is no stranger to ethics violations and investigations. In fact, when she was Premier of British Columbia, her government was accused of deleting emails that would have been subject to Freedom of Information requests. So if taxpayers and citizens of British Columbia or journalists were trying to dig up information about what the government was doing, Christy Clark's government officials were deleting those emails to keep the truth hidden. She would fit right in with the federal Liberals who are currently fighting a production order to hand over documents to the RCMP to investigate Liberal corruption. So even a so-called outsider like Christy Clark is just like Justin Trudeau, fighting against accountability and transparency and an ideological love of the carbon tax. Just more of the same with Christy Clark too.
Hello, I'm Chandra Arya, Member of Parliament for Nepean. I'm running to be the next Prime Minister of Canada.
And then we have the rest. In the next few days, you're going to see all kinds of names of Liberal MPs floating their name out there to give themselves a little bit more profile and boost their own personal brands. Remember, not one of them objected to what Justin Trudeau was doing. They all sat around the caucus meetings and cabinet meetings and voted in favor of what he was doing. They aided and abetted Justin Trudeau, breaking our immigration system, doubling housing costs, running up massive deficits that pushed up interest rates and drove inflation. And they all supported hiking and quadrupling the carbon tax, which has caused so much economic misery for so many Canadians.
So you're the first person to officially declare for this. Why are you the person to replace Justin Trudeau?
Why am I the person to replace Justin Trudeau? Good question.
But let's go back. It has to be said, all of this is because Justin Trudeau refused to call an election. He refused to put the fate of our country into the hands of voters. Instead, he's going to let a few Liberal insiders select who is going to be the next Prime Minister, instead of allowing every single Canadian voter to make that choice. When you see any of them put their name forward, just remember, they would do exactly the same things that Justin Trudeau has done.